You know, if you've been watching the silver market for any length of time, you remember the big price peaks. They're legendary. But what if a day came that made all of those moments look small? Well, today, we're digging into source material that describes exactly that. December 23rd, 2025, the day silver did what many thought was impossible.
And on this day, wow, silver didn't just inch past the old records, it completely blew them away. Our source says the price just skyrocketed to an intraday high of $71.11 an ounce. Now, this wasn't just a new number on a chart. It was a huge psychological moment, smashing through a price barrier that many folks thought they would never, ever see in their lifetime.
Okay, so to really get the impact of that $71 figure, you have to look back. For more than 40 years, really, the market has been defined by two big moments. That legendary $50 peak back in 1980, and then the big run-up to almost $49 in 2011. This new high, this isn't just another peak. It represents a total break from a pattern that held for nearly half a century.
So the big question, the one everyone is asking, is how on earth did this happen? Was it just one big event, some kind of sudden market panic? Well, the source material is very clear on this. Nope. It was what it calls a perfect storm. A bunch of powerful forces that had been building up for years, and they all just hit at the very same time.
So let's unpack this perfect storm. The sources argue this incredible price move was no accident. It was the result of three separate, very powerful drivers all converging on the market at once, creating this unstoppable upward force.
So here's how we're going to break this down. Think of it like three pillars holding this new price up. First, we're going to look at the short-term sparks, the things that really lit the fuse. Then we'll get into the long-term structural problem with supply. And finally, we're going to talk about the absolute explosion in demand.
The immediate spark, according to the source, was a classic 1-2 punch. First, you had growing sanctions on Venezuelan oil, which got people worried about inflation, sending them looking for the safety of real hard assets. And then, at the exact same time, the Federal Reserve started signaling that easier money was on the horizon, which, makes an asset like silver look very, very attractive.
Okay, let's move on to that second pillar, because this is the real engine behind the whole thing. Our source material points to a fundamental problem that's been getting worse for years. The world is simply using up way more silver than we can manage to mine.
And the scale of this problem is just staggering. For 2025, that was the fifth year in a row of a deficit. The world was short somewhere between 118 and 149 million ounces of silver. That is a massive hole that has to be filled by draining existing stockpiles. And we all know those stockpiles don't last forever.
And you can really see this stress playing out in the big COMEX vaults. Think of it this way. You have registered silver, which is basically the for sale pile. And then there's eligible silver, which is just being stored there by its owners. Well, the source points out a really troubling trend. Owners are physically pulling their eligible silver out of the vaults entirely. That signals a serious lack of trust and tells you they have no intention of selling.
Now, let's flip over to the other side of the coin, because according to our sources, this rally is totally different from the ones we've seen in the past. This time, the demand isn't just about people buying coins and bars. It's being driven by massive industries that have to have silver, no matter what. It's a non-negotiable demand. Yeah, see, unlike those old speculative rallies, this one is anchored by what's called inelastic industrial demand. That's a fancy way of saying that crucial technologies like solar panels, electric vehicles, and now even AI data centers, they simply can't function without silver. There are no substitutes. So whether the price is $30 or $70, they have to buy it. And that puts a constant, relentless pressure on the price. And by the way, if you like our videos, please like, share, and subscribe to follow us so you won't miss any exciting updates. Now, on top of all that industrial buying, our source notes that investors are flooding back into the market in a big way. We're talking huge flows into silver ETFs and a massive comeback in sales of physical coins and bars, which is just adding a whole lot of fuel to an already roaring fire.
So with $71 now in the history books, the big question is, what happens next? Is this the top? Or is this just the start of a whole new era for silver? Well, the source material pulled together several forecasts from some of the top analysts in the market. And what's really telling is that while the exact price targets might differ a little, the general feeling is overwhelmingly positive. You've got major voices like Peter Schiff and big institutions like BNP Paribas saying they see silver hitting or even passing $100 in 2026. And they're all pointing to the exact same supply and demand forces that we've been talking about.
Of course, we all know nothing goes up in a straight line forever. And the source does point out a few key risks that could put the brakes on this rally. A much stronger US dollar, for example, could make silver more expensive for buyers overseas. Or a really deep global recession could hit that industrial demand, at least for a while.
So when you boil it all down, the single most important point our source material makes is this. The argument is that what we're seeing isn't some speculative frenzy. It's not a temporary bubble. No, this is a fundamental repricing of a critical commodity. It's the world finally waking up to a simple fact. Our future demands more silver than we can actually produce.
And that really leaves us with one last, big, thought-provoking question that gets right to the heart of the matter. If these trends keep going, if the stockpiles keep draining away, what happens then? What are the real-world consequences when the physical silver needed for our solar panels, our cars, and our AI simply isn't there, at any price?